Suspense. Expect the Unexpected by Renuka Nayak. Death calling. It was getting dark and chilly. Winter had slowly crept in and was making its presence felt like never before. Maggie felt its cold hands running down her spine. She pulled her blanket tightly around her. She had been reading a book, bundled up cozily on a chair, but now she felt the cold seeping into her bones. Maggie got up from her chair. She would prepare some hot chicken soup today. Not that she was hungry, but then she was never hungry these days. Food did not interest her anymore. Ever since David had died, David had been her only son who died at a very tender age in a car accident. She felt that a part of her died on the same day. It was only the body that was left behind. Her soul had departed with him. Not that Maggie had always been like this. She had been a lively and cheerful person who found humor in the smallest things of life. She had loved cooking for David, who had been a ravenous eater. But now she sighed. Maggie had turned into a loner after her son's death. Books were her only company now. She avoided people because they reminded her of the good times she had spent with David. People thought she had turned senile after her son's death. Maggie wiped a tear that had slipped out. She moved towards the kitchen. Just then, she heard a soft tap at her door. Tap, 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 tap. She wondered whether she had imagined it, but then the tap got louder and persistent. Tap, 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 tap. She moved cautiously towards the door. Who could it be at this hour? Nobody visited her much. Who is it? She shouted. There was no reply. Who is it? She demanded in a firmer tone now. She decided not to open the door. She had heard of many bad incidents happening to women who lived alone. She was just about to call the police when she heard a whimpering at the other end. It did not sound like an adult. It sounded more like a child. Who is it? She demanded again. The whimpering only got louder. Maggie did not know what to do. If it was a child, she could not let it stand outside in the cold. She had to do something. She decided to open the door. As she partially opened it, a tiny little face peeked back at her expectantly. She opened the door fully now. What she saw puzzled her. There, standing in front of her, was a small child, maybe 4 years old. The child stood all alone. Suddenly, it started snowing outside. Snowflakes falling from heaven lightly settled on his golden mane. His eyes looked huge on his face that was streaked with tears. He looked more like an angel. Suddenly his face broke into a grin on spotting her. Maggie felt her heart melt. Who are you? What's your name? And where are your parents? She asked the little boy. The boy looked at Maggie innocently. Mama. His eyes searched hers. She noticed that they were the color of the blue sea. Where is your mama? Why are you all alone? She questioned. The little boy pointed out a small finger at Maggie. Mama, Mama. This puzzled Maggie even more. Maggie pulled the boy inside. He was not dressed up sufficiently for the cold day. Listen to me, darling. Stay in. Let me check whether your parents are around. Maggie stepped out of the house and looked around. There was not a single soul outside. The snow was falling faster than before. Maggie rushed inside. The child had made himself comfortable on a chair. But wait a minute. The chair had been in David's room. How did it come out? Or had she brought it out earlier while cleaning and had forgotten about it? Yes, that must be the case. How else would the child know where to find the chair? Mama, hungry, the child said, patting his stomach. Maggie heated this chicken soup and served it to the child. He hungrily slurped it down. May I have some more? He pleaded. This reminded her of David. David would do the same, always ask for more. She gave her share to the child. The child finished it quickly. Maggie felt something stir in her heart. She caressed the child's hair lovingly. He smiled back. Mama, I'm sleepy, the child said, rubbing his eyes. Give me a minute. Let me put the dishes into the sink. Maggie thought of the poor parents. She had been through worse and could relate to the pain of losing a child. She decided to report the matter to the police. She put the dishes in the sink and made a call to the police. But she soon realized that the phone lines were dead. Maybe there was a storm approaching. Maggie looked out the window. The snow was falling furiously and had thrown a cloak of white all around. There was no way she could go out now. She would have to wait till morning. She turned around. The child was not there. Maggie panicked. She looked around for the child but could not find him. Then she heard him calling out, Mama, sing me a song, please. I cannot sleep. The voice was coming from David's room. Maggie rushed to the room. The child had climbed into David's bed and had pulled the blanket over him. What she saw next made her heart stop. The child was holding David's teddy. That was how David slept, holding the teddy close to his heart. More tears slipped from Maggie's eyes. She moved towards the child and hugged him. What's your name, dear? She asked him. The child looked puzzled. What's your name? She repeated gently. His eyes reflected hurt. She wondered why. He turned his back against her as if in anger. In some time the child fell asleep. She kissed him on his forehead. It felt like good old days. This had been her routine. She would always kiss David on his forehead once he fell asleep. As she moved to turn off the light, her heart missed a beat. Looking back at her was a younger image of Maggie, maybe in her 20s. Was she dreaming? She rubbed her eyes and looked one more time at her reflection. It was definitely a younger Maggie looking back at her in the mirror. Suddenly, she heard a commotion outside. She rushed outside. People had gathered in her house. They were her neighbors. She was surprised to see them inside her house. Yes, what do you want? And what are you all doing here at this hour? And how could you forcibly enter into my house? She demanded in a firm tone. But no one paid attention to her. They were busy looking at something. Some of them looked shocked while the others looked sad. Maggie heard the ambulance stop at her door. The men rushed in. What is going on? She asked, fearful. Then something struck her. Were they all looking for the boy? Had his parents complained? Look, the boy is inside, safe and sound. I was going to report the matter to the police in the morning anyway, she explained. Her voice once again fell on deaf ears. Their gaze was fixed on something. Maggie moved her head and was stunned at what she saw. There was a woman lying on the floor. The face could not be seen. She was lying down on her face. Who could be that lady? Maggie had not heard anyone enter the house. How did the lady manage to enter her house? She saw the men turn the lady around. Time stopped for Maggie as she recognized the face. It was a face she had been seeing every day for the past 60 years. It was a face that had been beautiful in youth and had aged gracefully. It was a face she had been living with. It was her face. The book she had been reading was lying next to her body. She is dead, announced the officer. Maggie looked out the window. The weather was clear. There was no snow outside. It slowly dawned on her that the cold she had felt in her heart and bones had been death slowly creeping in. She suddenly felt a tug at her skirt. She turned around. It was a child. Mama, I'm your David. I've come to take you. Let's go. The child looked at her and smiled eerily.